I'm Lauren Rivers, and welcome to part 2 of our trip to Star Trek Las Vegas 2018, the Rio Hotel and Suites. So, Tuesday we left BronyCon and arrived in Vegas, and, got a rental car and made our way to the motel that we decided to stay at first night, the Travelodge. Now, of course, what I didn't realize at the time, being that I had never been to a Star Trek con before, especially this con, was that things actually start up on Tuesday. And I forget, I think I first became aware of this as a possibility when I saw the pre-registration schedule, which they posted about a week in advance. And, I was like, pre-registration starts on Tuesday. And then they actually opened the dealer's room on Tuesday, which I thought was kind of strange. But, this being the case, I was like, okay, well, maybe we better go over there on Tuesday. Well, since we didn't have a room until Wednesday, we got there on Tuesday, and it was like, okay. We realized that, we didn't have anything else to do Tuesday night, so we might as well go and pre-register. So, we drove onto the Las Vegas Strip, which, I had been here a number of years ago for a Celine Dion concert, and we stayed at a friend's house and went to Caesar's Palace for the concert and some of the evening. And it had been a very short trip. We were only there for, I think, Friday to Monday, because it was just there for the concert. And I think the concert was on Sunday, so I think we had Saturday to kind of walk the Strip and get familiar with the area, take a look at the concert zone, and check out Caesar's Palace. Yeah, but this was going to be a much larger trip, so we made our way to our hotel, which was the Rio, and this was a huge building. I mean, when we first parked at the guided self parking, I was kind of a little bit overwhelmed. I had to ask a lot of directions, and I had to ask them for a map at the front desk, and of course I had this place was so huge. I was kind of a little intimidated, but once I actually had a chance to look around the place, it all kind of seemed to make a lot more sense. Going there on Tuesday definitely ended up paying off, because future days we started being able to familiarize ourselves with the hotel, and by the time it was Wednesday, we kind of had the place down. But we went there on Tuesday, and pre-registration opens at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the gold members, and then every hour or so, or a couple hours, they would expand the pre-registration to the next level down, to captain's chair, and then copper, and then finally to general weekend admission. Of course, general weekend admission was still a good amount of money, so we had gone with that, since we had never been to this con before. And pre-registration was a breeze. I mean, there was nobody in line, and we were done in like 5 minutes. I mean, it amazed me how fast we were through registration. But we went into the rotunda, which of course the theme for this year's convention, I think, was Mirror Universe. So they had a giant Terran Empire symbol right in the middle of the rotunda, and a bunch of banners all along the perimeter of the room, showing everybody's Mirror Universe counterparts, or at least their Mirror Universe costumes. And that was the dealer's room was open, so we got a chance to preview everything that was in the con. And so I got a Star Trek wallet, and I went and got a bunch of pictures to get signed, because I was intending to collect some autographs. And because I'd never been to this con before, it was kind of funny, because so many people over the weekend ended up asking me for advice, or how I had to explain how the con worked to them, which was funny, because all the information was on the website. You just had to do your homework, and I definitely did my homework before I went on this trip. You can ask Drag; he'll tell you all the research I put into making sure that this trip worked. But despite the large quantity of things we had to do, there really was almost no problem in getting anything done. I mean, I'll talk about this more later, but and I know that this is at least in part because this was a corporate-run con, and I absolutely understand that volunteer-run conventions, they have certain limitations, because they're not working with the kind of money that that this con had. But that being said, I cannot say enough about how Star Trek Las Vegas was run. everything was amazing. And I will get into that a little bit later in more detail, but everything went like clockwork. Everything started on time, everything ended on time, everything was clockwork precise, and everything was super smooth. I mean, they had in the dealer's room, they had a bunch of tables where some of the guests would be sitting and signing autographs. Some of them would do photo ops, depended on what they were offering. It all depended on the guests because they were all allowed to set their own hours and set their own conditions, provided that they weren't doing anything through Creation Entertainment. Now, of course, if they were doing something through Creation, Creation would do the heavy lifting and they would get a cut of the profits, I would assume. But some of them were just sitting there at their table and just, you could go up and talk to the stars for a few minutes, and it really impressed me because there was no lines, there were never any issues. Everyone was very well behaved, both, everybody on attending the con, and you really didn't ever have to worry about anything because it all just, everybody just got along great. But it impressed me how, I mean, everybody, every actor, of course, had a handler with them, which I'm guessing was convention staff or maybe it was just a personal friend or something. But somebody to manage the money, to deal with the logistics and get them where they need to go, I guess. And but let's see. Okay, well, I guess I should take a minute to talk about the room, because the room at this hotel was amazing. It was gorgeous. I mean, as soon as we walked in, I was blown away. I think it's probably the nicest hotel room I've ever stayed in so far. And, especially after, I mean, BronyCon was a normal hotel room. This was nice. And, just looking around, it really impressed me that this was going to be our home for the next 6 or 7 days. So, we set up shop and, this was home base for a little while. And it was really nice. I can't say enough about how gorgeous this room was. But the convention space was decked out in all kinds of Star Trek stuff. They had banners and they had Star Trek music playing all over the place. And there were a bunch of signs and, of course, all the doors had, I guess, arches over them that had, like, Star Trek themed things. And, there were photo ops set up different places, like the Guardian of Forever, a pile of tribbles. There was a transporter somewhere, and even though I never saw them, there was like a original series bridge set and a 10 forward mock-up. It wasn't the whole room, of course, but it was just like the bar and stuff. And they had a section of the hotel called Quark's Bar, which was, I guess, kind of L-shaped room. It was divided from a larger convention space, obviously. And in this space, they had some lights and some stuff that was designed to remind you of Quark's Bar, with the motif of that lighted section in the background, and a big Quark's Bar sign on, I think, both the inside and outside of the room. And they had a big screen in the corner that would be pretty much constantly playing Star Trek all weekend. I think it was just whatever episode they decided to air at the time. And in the corner there was the CBS All Access stage. And this was a room where you could actually get a bunch of different kinds of food. Some of them were things like, fresh fruit. They had granola bars. They had burgers. They had a couple of different kinds of sandwiches and salads. All kinds of like pre-prepared stuff that they could, distribute easily. They had like coffee and tea and a bunch of different bottled beverages, candy, cookies, muffins, things like that. And that was nice. I mean, we definitely took advantage of that a couple of times, when our window between events was not long enough to really warrant going anywhere or being able to do a sit-down meal. For the most part, we usually had a pretty good break, at least between the morning and the afternoon activities. And unlike most cons, a lot of the stuff at the Star Trek con kind of shut down after about 5:30. So it was actually kind of nice because the evenings were pretty much ours to do with as we will. And most of the time we used that time to go find a decent dinner. And, there wasn't any hurry to get back to the hotel afterwards, and there wasn't a whole lot going on afterwards. So, that was a different experience. But, it was kind of nice that once we finished whatever we were doing at about like 5:30, everything just pretty much shut down. And Of course, the con space was still open. There was some things going on, like the dealer's room was open from, I think, 8 in the morning to like 7 at night. So, I mean, you could go to the dealer's room at almost all hours. And, they had a area where you'd pick up your photos, which, of course, I'll get to in a little bit. And, one of the things they had here, one of the exhibits they had at this place was a Mirror Universe exhibit, which had a lot of the costumes and some of the concept art, some of the props from the Mirror Universe arc of Star Trek Discovery's first season. And, of course, I was planning on visiting this exhibit at some point, but, we had an opportunity when we had a quiet period during some unexpected downtime where we went inside to look at this exhibit. They told us, take as many pictures as you want, just don't touch anything. And, I was fine with that. I got lots of pictures, and, it was all very gorgeous, very impressive. So, we, of course, being in Vegas and the fact that it's set in a hotel/casino, we had to do a little gambling. I had a couple machines that I wanted to play. One of them was, Buffy, and one of them was like a horse-themed machine. And then there was just some other machine that I think I just sat down at, and I put $5 in, and I didn't expect anything. But as I was playing, it started doing this thing where it would give me free games. And then, as it was doing the spin, it wouldn't let me do anything until it was finished. Well, this machine just kind of kept doing its own thing for about 5 minutes as I was waiting for it to do whatever it is it was doing, and it would keep coordinating back up and down. And I was thinking, okay, this has got to stop sometime. This machine just kept going up and down and up and down. Well, finally it ended, and when it was done, it told me that I had $133 as my balance, and I was like, whoa. So, I think last time I was in Vegas, I won like $14 on a slot machine, and I think that was about as far as it went. But, with $130, I wasn't going to take my chances with anything else. So, I cashed out the machine, and that turned out to be pretty much just enough money to pay for our dinner that night at Hell's Kitchen. Now, of course, I've been a Gordon Ramsay fan for a long time. I've always enjoyed watching his shows. I think a while ago, Shrag got me into watching Hell's Kitchen and MasterChef too. And of course, I think there was some period where I hadn't really watched either one of these with him, but then I started watching him, and then every year after that we just kind of watched them all together. And I'd been seeing all these Gordon Ramsay restaurants, and I decided at some point I have to eat at one of his restaurants before I die. So we decided, hey, Hell's Kitchen's in Las Vegas, and a couple of months earlier I had seen the furry artist, or I don't know if she considers herself furry, but the artist Jackal, who does Carowin, yes, Carowin and Black Tapestries, and she had eaten at the same restaurant, and sent pictures, and I was kind of curious to go. So, since we were going to be in Vegas, I said, we need to pick a night to go to this restaurant and try the food. So, we ended up picking Wednesday because at the time we didn't think we were going to have anything to do. Well, I mean, it all kind of worked out anyway because, like I said, the con shut down at 5:30. So, we were able to go to our late night reservation without any problems. I mean, I kind of had thought that it might be a little bit difficult, but, unlike most other conventions where things go to all hours of the day, Star Trek kind of shuts down after the whistle blows, so, we were able to do our full day of activities on Wednesday, which included, I think, at least 2 of the photo ops that we were supposed to do. And then, at the end of the evening, we had plenty of time to relax a little bit and go find our Hell's Kitchen. But, of course, the restaurant was designed exactly like the show. I mean, it wasn't, a match for the studio or anything like that, but you could tell there was the Hell's Kitchen symbol everywhere, and the chefs in the kitchen had the red and the blue jackets, and I ordered a beef Wellington, and we both got the white asparagus soup, and the beef Wellington was delicious. It was just absolutely melt in your mouth, amazing. And the white asparagus soup, it was so good. I mean, we were both scraping our bowl clean. It was so good. I mean, it was really just a fantastic companion to the beef Wellington. I mean, it was just fantastic, and it was probably the highlight meal of the con. So that was a lot of fun. And while I was in the dealer's room, I had a chance to check out some of the Anovo's Starship models, which I think they said that they're like filming size or something. And these models are a pretty hefty price tag at about $8,000 or $9,000 depending on which one you want. Now, of course, I don't have the capability to add something like that to my collection. If I was rich, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But, these models were amazingly detailed. They all light up from within. Truly gorgeous conversation pieces. I mean, kind of like they had them, in a couple of different glass cases, which, gave me a really nice opportunity to get a close look at them. There's a lot of really good cosplay at the Star Trek convention. I found a couple of Borg, a lot of various Starfleet uniforms. I think I saw every kind of Star Trek uniform that they've had in the franchise during the course of the weekend. And, a couple of really good Maresses, which, I thought both of them were really, really well done, and they were fantastic. So they were kind enough to pose for pictures for me, and, that was really cool. As far as they had a lot of large panels. The one panel in particular in what they called the Leonard Nimoy Exhibition Hall, I think, or Leonard Nimoy Theater, and it was basically a big open room, and the seating was divided by like 3 different kinds of chairs, some of which were labeled. I knew we were general weekend admission, so we got cheap seats in the back, but it really didn't matter because they had really big screens set up about halfway through the room, so you could see whatever was going on stage, and you could hear it through the sound system. So it really didn't make much of a difference that we had the seats in the back. But the room was always open, which was nice, so you could go in at the end of any panel. You didn't have to wait outside in a big long line, and I think that was one of the ways they kept lines from forming at the con in general. Most everything was open all the time. You just went in and went out as you pleased. Of course, you had to have your con badge, and unlike most cons, they had us wear a wristband, which we had to wear all weekend, which was kind of different. But they just kept the room open, so we could just go and come as we pleased, and it was really fantastic because you could just go find your seat, enjoy the panel, and then get up and leave, and no harm, no foul. It was super smooth. All the panels were fantastic. We saw a couple of panels with the TNG cast, Deep Space Nine's 25th anniversary kickoff. We had to miss one of the Enterprise panels because I think we had a photo op at the time or something. And there was a panel that had George Takei where he was talking about some of his experiences, which was interesting to see, and about 4 or 5 Discovery panels with some of the different guests of the show and some of the main actors, and it was all very interesting stuff. I could relate some stories, but I don't think we really want to get into that here right now. But the photo op and the autograph lines, they were all super smooth, like clockwork. The convention just had this like a finely tuned machine. You would get on a line about 15-20 minutes ahead of time. Really didn't pay to show up earlier because they had some windows for some of the celebrities that were like 5 or 10 minutes, and I was thinking that can't be enough time. But believe it or not, it was. Whoever they had, it's like they would get through like 15 people in a minute. They would just literally just send you up, take the picture, and you'd go, and that was really all there was to it. And the autograph lines were pretty much the same. Of course, obviously it paid to buy your tickets ahead of time because then you would get called earlier, and of course, if you bought your tickets at the con, you'd end up spending a lot more time on lines as a result of that fact. With Mary Wiseman's autograph, I ended up on a rather long line, which, well, actually, at first I didn't even sit on the line because the information wasn't updating to tell us that the next group was supposed to come up. So I asked one of the staff members, and they said that, Mary was signing really quickly, and so, they sent us up to the front, and I got my autograph, and, I ended up sitting in a panel for like an hour and a half, waiting for that to happen. But, hey, at least it was a good panel, I guess. And, I got to meet a lot of folks that, I've been watching for years. I got to meet Linda Park, who was absolute sweetheart. Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, both very gracious people. Got to talk to Gates McFadden for a couple of minutes, and Brent Spiner, Colin Meaney, who shook our hand, which I was really impressed that he did that. I don't expect anything from many of the actors, but I'm always gracious and grateful, whatever they choose to give me. I got a chance to meet Aaron Eisenberg, who actually follows me on Twitter, which I thought was pretty cool. But he was great to talk to. I mean, I didn't get as much time to talk to him as I would have liked to, but it was very pleasant, very very wonderful person to talk to, and definitely somebody I really enjoyed just kind of getting to chat with for a few minutes. I would have liked to say goodbye to him, but unfortunately, the dealer's room closed right after I think the last panel that he was on, so I really didn't get a chance to do that. And I was also talking to Tim DeZarn in the hallway, which I was supposed to go see him, but when I went by his table, he wasn't there, and of course then the dealer's room had closed. So I apologize for not being able to get back to his table. I had a little conversation with Anthony Montgomery from Enterprise, which I thought was really cool. He was sitting at his table, so I took a moment to say hi. And I talked to the Boba twins, who were the little girl from the episode of The Next Generation where they kidnapped the children. I'm forgetting the title right now, but it was one of my favorite episodes, particularly just kind of because it ended, the way it ended. But it was always one of my favorite first season episodes, particularly as I got older. And of course, lastly, I got to meet Rekha Sharma, which I knew her from Battlestar Galactica and from other places. She's one of those actresses that I became aware of because of Battlestar, and I really kind of started to follow her work, and I really like seeing her pop up in all of my sci-fi and fantasy shows. So it's always nice to see her. And I got to ask her a question about Battlestar that had kind of been plaguing me for a while. And I'd asked her the question on Twitter, but of course she didn't want to answer it publicly, because a lot of people ask her that question at cons, and I'm not going to tell you what the question is because I want her to be able to share that to fans as she likes. But it was a good question, and it was interesting, and I was very pleased to get an interesting answer. And she was wonderful to talk to for a minute, and of course the next day I decided to get a photo op with her, so that was a lot of fun. And she remembered me, which I was very flattered. So hopefully I'll maybe get another chance sometime to say hi. But let's see, I guess that's about it. All I can say about the Star Trek con. The trip home was pretty smooth, and I can definitely say that while I don't think we'll be able to go next year because the dates conflict with a few other events, but I can say with a fair amount of certainty we will be back. So live long and prosper. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. You can also find me on Twitter and a few other places on the web, or support me via Patreon or Ko-fi. Zebra hugs!